Welcome to the Business of You podcast, the show dedicated to helping service entrepreneurs build a better brand to grow a bigger business. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin, and I'm here each week empowering you to put yourself out there, sharing actionable tips and inspiring stories so you can create your personal brand, grow your dream business, and build your future, all while making more income and more impact doing exactly what you love. I'm super excited you're here. Now let's get going with today's show. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin. I am super excited because not only do we have a special guest, someone who I met several months ago and we just hit it off, he is introducing a very special framework for us. My guest today is Jim James. He's the founder of East West PR, located in the UK and some other locations he'll about to tell us. He's also the host of the Unnoticed Podcast. And he is all about helping us, personal brands, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, get unnoticed. Jim, welcome to the show.
Michelle, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be on the show. Thank you so much.
Yes, well, Jim and I met on LinkedIn, where I meet most of these amazing subject matter experts that I interview. I actually was on his show a few months ago, so we just hit it off. And I said, Jim, we have had so much fun. Come back on my show, which is debuting soon. So here we are. Tell me why it is super important for entrepreneurs, small business owners, thought leaders, all these personal brands to get noticed and get out there. Or as I like to say, put yourself out there.
Well, Michelle, I think the basic reason is because people buy people. And for all of us that have started businesses, and I've run businesses now on 3 continents over the last 25 years, the first thing that people look for is the quality and the integrity of the founder. Because when we're a startup, we don't have all the backing of maybe venture capital, a big brand, or even a history that would reassure potential customers or potential employees or partners to work with us. So the personal brand carries the business for that first, I would say, 12 to 18 months while the organization is getting established in the marketplace.
No, that's exactly why I really push professional personal brands as the face of your business. What better way to personalize, humanize, and build that trust? It escalates trust faster than you can with advertising and other ways. So that actually led you, as a storied career in PR, to start recently, and I guess over a year ago, you started the Unnoticed Podcast because you've been so passionate about this area. I want to give a shout out to that show because it is tremendous on the experts. And the beauty of it is he's only got 20 minutes episode, so it's easily digestible, which leads me today to talk about why we need to get out there, get unnoticed. And one of the things before we debut your index and this formula you've created, and I'm so thankful you're going to show us here or tell us about it here. What are the mistakes people are doing by not getting unnoticed, by holding themselves back that you see in your existence with personal and even company brands?
The main problem with not going noticed is that you're not being able to serve the people that could benefit from the value that you could be offering to them. So if I take, for example, my sister, Dr. Shelley James, when I came back from China and Asia after 25 years, I saw someone who has amazing insights into how light impacts young people. But because she hadn't shared that and actually wasn't aware how she could do that, there were children all over the world and parents who couldn't get the benefit from her experience. Fast forward now 12 months, and she's created some explainer videos, which have had over 2 million views, for example. And she's a keynote speaker and is on TV and on the radio. Millions of children and parents around the world have benefited from experience and knowledge that she had already, but it just needed to be shared. And that's really what getting noticed can do for you and for everybody.
I love that. Such a fast way to just put herself out there. The world was waiting. People were out there needing what she had to give. So I love that. That's, we said this in the pre-show taping that you and I are so much on the same bandwidth because you're about getting people noticed, and my tagline and mantras to help people put themselves out there for the exact same reasons. It's all about being that to serve others. So perfect example. Well, because you're so passionate about what you do, you've had a tremendous background and career doing it in PR, and with your show, you're now coming out with a book, but you're about to debut and tell us here this new index called the Active Communication Index. Thank you so much for debuting it here. Tell us all about it and how we can become more active online. Is there something you need to share?
I'm really excited and grateful that I've got a platform on your podcast to explain what I've been working on, which is called the Active Communications Index. The Active Communications Index is important because I think it's important that business owners and founders focus on what they can control. There's a lot of information out there about metrics, and most of them are what I would call vanity metrics, engagement, likes, shares, and so on. But those are out of one's control. We can't control those. Other people, and more importantly, the algorithms control those. The Active Communications Index is about what we can control. So it's an input-based measurement. And there are three elements to it. There is the content we create, there are the channels that we share that content on, and there is the frequency that we share the content across those channels. So the Active Communications Index is a formula. And when we put our numbers into the formula, which we do on a weekly basis, we'll get a number. Mm-hmm. And because we're on radio, not on TV, I'm not going to go too much into the maths of it because I don't want people to get caught up on that. But what I'd love to do, if I may,
sure,
I'd like to just ask everyone to think about a 4 square. Okay, so a bit like the Ansoff matrix or the Boston Consulting Group matrix, I've just got a 2x2 matrix here. Now, across the north and south, so if you imagine at 12 o'clock, I've got the word consistent. Mm-hmm. And at 6 o'clock, I've got the word inconsistent. And that relates to how often and over how many channels people are sharing their content. Okay. So at the top, it's consistent. At the bottom, it's inconsistent. Now, 9 o'clock, so on the left-hand side of that square, I've got the word dull. Okay, mm-hmm. in big letters, dull. Mm-hmm. And on the right-hand side at 3 o'clock, I've got the word innovative. I realize, of course, now a lot of people have an Apple digital watch. So they may not have the same analog clock face that I, but what we have then is we've got consistent, inconsistent, and dull, innovative. Mm-hmm. And then what I've done is I've created 4 quadrants. So if I may, I'll just share what those are. Is that okay? Am yes. I going at an okay pace on this,
yes.
Michelle?
Yes, this is great. I'm so excited to unveil this. So tell us more about the quadrant.
So the idea is, as a communicator, as a founder, you want to be creating innovative content consistently. Content that is easy to understand, that's context sensitive, and that is coming out frequently, or rather consistently, is going to do best. So what happens is if someone is creating kind of dull content and they're only creating that content inconsistently, they're going to be in my bottom left. They're going to be in the big red square with the word unnoticed written all over it. Now, if they are in the top left, so they're creating dull content consistently, well, you'd ask, why would they do that? But there are many big companies and small companies that really create Me Too content, and they are what I call followers. They're consistently posting, but they're posting content that's not really original. It's not really sparking any conversation, but they are producing another index or another picture of a puppy or a kitten. Now, in the bottom right quadrant, where I have got inconsistent along the base and innovative again at the 3 o'clock position, the 9 o'clock position, I've got inconsistent. Okay. So then I've got an opportunist. The opportunist is someone or a company that actually has great content, but they're only sharing that content infrequently. So they may be sharing content when they're about to go for a speaking engagement. They may share it on LinkedIn if they've seen someone else post something. They go, well, I've got an article like that. They've got what it takes to move into the top right-hand corner, which is the influencer. So someone who produces consistent, innovative content, those are the people that everybody goes to. That's often content that's their own. Sometimes it's content that they curate. It doesn't have to always be their own content. What we want really to do is, by using the ACI formula, the Active Communications Index formula, if you get a score of 75 to 100 you're going to be in that influencer bracket. Okay.
Mm.
And so from this very simple matrix, we have a number of strategies to help people move from that bottom left, which is that big red square with unnoticed all over it, and then hopefully move directly to the top right and pass follower or opportunist. So really that's the ACI. It's a very simple framework where people can start to see how they communicate as an individual or as a company, with some very simple to implement and free strategies to get into that top right quarter.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing this. So this is something you can share with you. You can take this assessment and then know where you stand. And as you said, you're going to provide from here on out the strategies to take you from unnoticed to well-known and recognized. So thank you so much for this. Powerful stuff.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share. I hope that without the benefit of a video, that the audio, I was still able to articulate the framework.
You certainly did. And you piqued our interest. And the beauty is we'll have the link and they can immediately go show it for all those who are listening. He debuted it before we started recording. It is very powerful, very simple and easy to follow. So highly recommend you checking that out. So Jim, as we nearing down to the end of our time together, tell us real quick the 3 takeaways you would give to people if they're just starting to want to get unnoticed, and like me, what I help people do, get themselves out there. What are your 3 takeaways?
In terms of, if you like, guidance or 3 things to think about, I think I would have to still follow on from the ACI, and that is the 3 elements of content and channels and consistency or frequency. So content, it doesn't have to be expensive, but it does have to be ideally original or interesting. Creating content that is interesting. And I would encourage people not to have pressure on themselves by trying to think of what's best, but rather to think of what is their take on a particular situation. Mm-hmm. Because what people are buying is that individual. They're not necessarily buying you pretending to be something that you're not. In fact, they'll be disappointed if you're doing that. So the first is to create content that, if you like, is from the heart, that's genuine, that's authentic. Then the second thing would be channels. Many people are connected to 1 or 2 channels, and they tend to live in the channel they're comfortable in. But there are many other channels and formats that people are not using. And I just encourage people to think of channels that are beyond Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. For example, SlideShare. 90 million people are on SlideShare, and very few people think of it as a platform. And yet for B2B marketing, uploading your presentations into SlideShare and doing all the tagging and the references can actually give you fantastic upside in terms of exposure and credibility. So think of channels beyond the, if you like, the core 3 or 4. And in terms of frequency, there's lots of guides there about how often one should show up across these different channels. The rule of thumb is to be consistent rather than frequent, which is why in my ACI, when I said at 12 and at 6, it's consistent and inconsistent. It's not frequent and infrequent. And there's a key difference there. Some people, like Spielberg, only produces a movie every 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. But we still all go. He's an influencer. He doesn't have to create a movie every week or every month. He just has to produce something solid when he's ready to do so. Create content that's your own vision of what you want to represent yourself as. Think of some channels that you may or may not have used yet, and to be consistent, because then people can rely on you and they'll get to know when you're going to produce your content, and then you can become part of their reading or listening habits. And that's really this best way to start to become part of the relationship that you need with that person to become a customer, a partner, or an employee.
Great tips. Thank you so much, Jim. Those are super, super, super helpful. Well, we're now at the point where I ask all my guests, and one day I'm going to write a book like you, because everyone gives me such nuggets and such wisdom. Jim, what is your professional or personal mantra that can help us get unnoticed or put ourselves out there?
Michelle, I've had the same mantra since 1995, June, when I went to Singapore as a young man, and it's to add value with every communication.
Mm.
And that stood me in good stead, to be honest. I've tried lots of other ones, but I'm often paid by people to help them to communicate. And so I think that my key role must be to add value with every communication. And I would encourage anyone to either, hold their peace or add value, because just making noise is not helping anybody, least of all the individual who's making that noise.
Smart words from our PR guy and someone who just debuted the Active Communications Index. Thank you for that. Very powerful. Well, Jim, if people want to learn more about you, your business, your podcast, and more specifically about this new Active Communications Index, where can they go to find you?
Yes, thank you, Michelle, for the opportunity to share. People can find me, Jim James, on LinkedIn. That's pretty easy. And also at eastwestpr.com. And there are opportunities there to find the Speak PR, the Unnoticed show, and also to book an appointment if anyone would love to get in touch. I'd be delighted to chat. Anyone that's a friend of yours, Michelle, will be more than welcome with me here in the shed.
Thank you. Yes, you've got a great setup there, so people need to check you out on there. Well, Jim, this has been a pleasure. I am again honored and privileged to have you here and to have you debut this amazing framework that's going to really change things for people and help them get noticed and help them put themselves out there. So for all of us who are unnoticed and want to get out there, we thank you. And thank you again for your time today. I look forward to chatting again soon. Okay, Jim? You take care.
Michelle, thank you so much for having me on your amazing show.
Thank you, Jim. We'll talk with you soon. Take care. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We definitely need more impactful entrepreneurs like you out there. So if you'd like to learn more about how I can help you build your personal brand to grow your business, please check out yourbrandyourbusiness.com. And until next time, you have a brand to build, a message to share, and people to impact. Now go put yourself out there and watch the business of you grow.